My name's Tim, I'm 28 and I suck at spelling. That's just the truth. In fact, there's a word that I love to use. The word is entrepreneur. Why? Well, because I am an entrepreneur now. I'm on an entrepreneur journey. I'm trying to build a business. I'm trying to build a personal brand. I'm trying to sell stuff online. I'm trying to do coaching. I'm trying to teach people English. But I am bad at spelling. And I don't really understand grammar. Ironically, it wasn't until about a year ago that I realized that for my entire life, I've been writing, spelling, and even pronouncing the word entrepreneur wrong. Because it's not interpreneur, it's intrapreneur. This tiny, subtle nuance that I keep getting wrong. And frankly, I couldn't give a damn. One of the things I use to help myself spell correctly is called Grammarly. It's a simple extension for your Google Chrome, and it will always correct your spelling mistakes. And trust me, there's a lot of them with me. So at the start of this year, when I was working on my ebook, I spent about 4 months developing it. I had everything written out, roughly in the spot where I wanted it to be. And then I just opened up Grammarly and ran it through the Google Doc and was disgusted by the sheer amount of red errors. There were like hundreds of them, hundreds of misspells. There were numerous cases of double letters missing or double letters being included where they're not supposed to be, commas that went gone. There were, sometimes there were even articles that went missing or the wrong preposition was used. I mean, a shitload of mistakes, pardon my French. But I look back at it and I think, that's just who you are. I know that I make spelling mistakes. I know that I make mistakes in my grammar. And I know that overall, for my speech, those are actually not that important. Majority of people following me, watching my content, going on coaching calls with me, people that buy my products, the people who want to speak like me, not have the grammatical, vocabulary, spelling, theoretical knowledge. Because theory is great, but it limits us to how far we can actually go. Theory will only take us so far. I think it was Robert J. Oppenheimer that said that, or at least that was in the movie Oppenheimer that came out like 2 years ago or so. Every once in a while, I'll sit on YouTube and I'll watch one of these spelling bee competitions from the United States. And they love them. They love spelling bee competitions, right? So you have a kid sitting there at the age of 7 and they're just giving him some, perspicacious word. And then he has to go like P-E-R-D-D. I have no idea. You know where it goes worse for me? It's when I have to tell somebody my phone number in English, because I'm actually used to reciting it in my native language. I always have to write it down before I read it. So for me, spelling is just not in my domain. I'm not good at it, but I also don't see any point in getting good at it. And this is what I want to talk to you about today. It's when does the theoretical knowledge actually make sense for us to make the leap and learn it? The common fallacy of the world for everything we do is, oh, I'm just not good at this. A lot of people just say this, my voice isn't that good. My knowledge of English just isn't that good. My vocabulary just isn't that good. Well, can we work on it? Is always a resounding answer of yes. Do we want to work on it? Should we work on it? Is it a good idea to work on it? That, again, is not always a resounding yes. It depends on your particular situation. I always talk and write about how schools teach us English, or any language, as if it were a math exam. And there's one thing I've learned about math exams is that everybody that passes them then also forgets all the knowledge. And I guarantee you right now that even though I don't know how old you are, whether primary school was 5 years ago or 20 years ago or 50 years ago, chances are that a lot of the stuff you've learned you don't actually remember. And it's not just mathematics. I mean, everything is built in such a way that it was about rote memorization. It was about studying lists of vocabulary and grammar rules and then just making sure you pass the exam, because as soon as you pass the exam, you have the degree, the diploma, the test, the completion, the affirmation from the societal guidance that you are now set and ready for life. But then it comes to actually speaking and suddenly all of those rules go right out the window. Specifically if you're speaking to a camera, because a camera is a very big monster indeed. Or keeping eye contact with a human being on a date, or being at a job interview where the people that are sitting around you all have suits and ties and have actually done something, whereas you are just an undergraduate student who's there to try to nick themselves their first ever job. How important in that moment is it that we know how to spell entrepreneur I still don't know what it is, and I really frankly couldn't give a because I'm an entrepreneur by doing what I'm doing rather by knowing how to spell it. I mean, the ability to spell your job description, I think, has much less of an impact than your ability to do said job. And to drive my point home, the following thing is the harsh reality of English. English is a very incongruent language when it comes to how we write stuff and how we actually pronounce stuff. Unfortunately, very often there's absolutely no logic between these two. In the Balkan region, or ex-Yugoslavia, there's a really beautiful expression that we love to use. Piši kao što govoriš. In a quite literal translation, it means write it the way that you speak it. And I think it's beautiful. Unfortunately, the English language does not follow that rule. So a lot of the times you have stuff written in one way but pronounced in a completely different way. Or it's written the same way and pronounced in an entirely different way. These are called heteronyms and homophones, and they are the bane of most people's existence. Because right now you can read a book, but if you've read it in the past, then it's red, the same pronunciation as the color red, which becomes a problem for a lot of people that are not from an English-speaking country, because in the moment it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But you have to learn and memorize. And I think it's better for you to go through the process of speaking and listening to the correct pronunciation of the word, as opposed to going through the writing process. Except, of course, for the word entrepreneur, because if I ever actually looked at the word for long enough, I would probably have realized that I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. And on the topic of this, I'm going to give you a little fun exercise. If you take any word in the English language and just stare at it for long enough, it will lose all of its meaning. This happened to me a long time ago. I was in high school, and I was actually writing an exam. And in the exam, whatever it was, whether it was a fill in the gap, the word people had to be used. And I knew how people is called, right? Like, we are all people. I'm a person, but we are all people. I knew it, but I couldn't remember how it was spelt. And so I spent probably about 15 minutes trying to think of it before eventually looking around the classroom and eventually finding a poster that was right next to me, ironically, a poster where the word people was used. And I looked at it and I stared at it, and I just was disgusted by how weirdly the word is written versus how it's actually spelt out and pronounced. People. P-E-O-P-L-E. People. It just didn't make sense to me. And it still doesn't make sense to me today. And I guarantee you can take any word in the English language, stare at it for long enough, especially if it's a long word, and it's going to become a jigsaw puzzle. It will just lose all of its meaning, and you're going to start asking yourself, why did this language develop the way that it did? Frankly, I don't know, and honestly, I don't really care. It is the way it is. I'm here to teach and help people with their speaking, with their voice development, and to this day, and I think until the day I die, I will not care about spelling, and I will not care about grammar, and I will not stress myself out by rote memorization of vocabulary. Because chances are that I will continue to use the pronunciation of the word entrepreneur rather than entrepreneur, even though it's a tiny difference. Frankly, I just couldn't give a damn. That's it. That's all I wanted to tell you.